I never considered myself the type of man who could be tempted. Not really. My life was routine, structured, safe, perhaps too safe. I worked from home in a small, peaceful neighborhood where the most thrilling event was the occasional lost dog or a neighbor's garage sale. That was until Erica Monroe moved in next door. My wife, Laura, and I had lived in the same house for 6 years. We were the definition of stability, at least on the surface. She was a nurse, often working 12-hour shifts at the hospital. I worked in cybersecurity from the comfort of our home office. We loved each other, or at least we used to. Somewhere along the line, the spark that once lit up our conversations and kisses had faded into silence and routine. It was late spring when Erica moved into the vacant house next door. I remember the first time I saw her, unloading boxes from a rental truck in cut-off jeans and a faded hoodie. Her face was unreadable, but her movements were sharp, like someone carrying not just cardboard boxes, but emotional baggage. I offered a hand. She declined politely, then thanked me with a tight smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "New neighbor?" Laura asked that evening, barely looking up from her tea.
"Yeah."
"Moved in alone," I replied. Hope she's not loud." That was it. No curiosity. No warmth. Just another interaction passed between us like an exchange of invoices. I went to bed that night feeling like a stranger in my own home. Over the next week, I noticed Erica more often. Watering her plants early in the morning, pacing her porch while talking on the phone, sometimes just sitting alone with a glass of wine and a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. She looked lonely, but never weak. There was a storm behind her eyes, controlled, but always present. One afternoon, as I stepped out to grab the mail, she waved. I waved back. It was nothing, and yet it stayed with me longer than it should have. A few days later, she knocked on my door. "Hi," she said, clutching a small Allen wrench in her hand. "I'm sorry to bother you. I was trying to assemble a bookshelf, and I think I've just insulted every piece of wood in the set." I laughed. She smiled. That time, it reached her eyes. Laura wasn't home, another night shift at the hospital. I hesitated for a moment, then nodded.
"Yeah, sure.
I can help." Her living room was a sea of half-built furniture and unopened boxes. She offered me a drink, which I declined. We worked quietly at first, but eventually the silence cracked. "I was married," she said, not looking up. 10 years. He cheated on me for 6 of them. I paused mid-screw, unsure how to respond. He told me I made him feel small, that I was too emotional, too intense. "I'm sorry," I said quietly. She shrugged. "Don't be." I lost time, not dignity. That line stayed with me. Erica wasn't seeking pity. She was reclaiming herself in small pieces, one bookshelf, one screw, one breath at a time. As we worked, we laughed more. Her sarcasm danced with my dry wit. It felt easy, natural, not flirtatious, but undeniably intimate. I couldn't remember the last time I laughed like that with Laura, or even spoke to her for more than 10 minutes without the conversation dissolving into silence or exhaustion. We finished around 9 p.m. She looked at the assembled shelf like it was a monument. "Seriously," she said. "Thank you. I would have thrown that thing out the window." "No problem," I replied, wiping my hands. "You did most of the work." She stepped closer and lightly touched my arm. "You're the first person who's helped me in months without asking for something in return. That means a lot." The touch lingered for a second. Too long. I felt my chest tighten, not from discomfort, but from something far more dangerous, the realization that I didn't want to leave. I forced a smile, gave a casual nod, and stepped back. "Anytime," I said. "Really?" I walked home with my heart pounding like I had just done something wrong, even though I hadn't. Not technically. But I knew something had shifted. A boundary had moved, subtly, dangerously. And I hadn't resisted. Laura was already asleep when I got back. The house was quiet, except for the soft hum of the refrigerator and the ticking clock above our kitchen doorway. I stood in the hallway for a moment, staring at the closed bedroom door. There was no kiss goodnight. No question about my day. Just silence. But for the first time in months, that silence was no longer comforting. It felt like a verdict. That night, I lay in bed beside my wife, her back turned to me, and thought about another woman's eyes. Eyes filled with hurt, courage, and something else I didn't want to name yet. It had only been a favor. That's what I told myself. Nothing happened, but something had begun. After that night in Erica's living room, I found myself seeking her out in ways I couldn't justify. I told myself it was harmless. That neighbors talk. That people connect. But beneath every excuse was a truth I didn't want to face. I craved something I hadn't felt in a long time. A few days later, I was trimming the hedge between our yards when Erica stepped onto her porch with a coffee in hand. She wore a thick sweater draped loosely over her shoulders, her hair pulled into a lazy bun. "You've got a real talent for landscaping," she called out. I smirked. "Only when I'm procrastinating work." "Then you must be an artist," she grinned. We chatted casually for a few minutes. Jokes, harmless remarks, but our eyes held each other longer than they should have. There was a warmth there, and familiarity, like we had slipped into some quiet understanding that didn't need words. And yet, still, we said nothing dangerous. Not yet. Inside the house, Laura's voice broke through my daydream. "Can you bring the laundry in?" she called.
"Yeah."
"Give me a sec." I caught Erica's smile twitch slightly, just for a second. She waved and stepped back inside. The moment was over. But the feeling wasn't. That weekend, Laura had picked up an extra shift again. We barely crossed paths anymore. Meals were eaten in silence. Conversations were clipped and mechanical. She was exhausted, I was lonely, and neither of us knew how to bridge the gap. Or maybe we no longer wanted to. Saturday morning, I stepped out to retrieve a delivery when I saw Erica sitting on the curb, head in her hands. I walked over, hesitant. "Hey, everything okay?" She looked up, eyes glassy. "I just had a call with my ex. He's contesting the settlement. Wants the house now, even though he was the one who left." "That's awful," I said, sitting beside her. "What a mess." She laughed bitterly. "He once told me I was impossible to love, that I wore people out." I shook my head. "He doesn't sound like someone who deserved your love in the first place." Her eyes met mine, quiet, grateful. "Thank you," she whispered. And then, almost instinctively, I placed a hand on her back. It was a simple gesture. Supportive. Protective. But when she leaned into it, when our shoulders touched and she let herself rest against me, something cracked open. We sat like that for minutes. Maybe hours. I don't know. Afterward, we didn't talk about it. But everything changed. We started texting, nothing inappropriate at first. Just jokes, random thoughts, memes. But then came the confessions. "I can't sleep lately," she messaged one night. "Me neither," I replied. "Too much on my mind." "Ever wish you could hit reset?" she wrote. "All the time." Silence. Then, "If I had met someone like you years ago, maybe I wouldn't be so wrecked." I stared at the screen for a long time, then deleted the message. Not because I wanted to forget it, but because I didn't want Laura to find it. That night, I lay beside my wife while she scrolled through her phone, her screen's glow highlighting the deep creases under her eyes. I studied her face like it was a fading photograph of someone I used to know. The next day, Erica asked if I could look at her kitchen sink. The faucet was leaking. I said yes too quickly. Inside her kitchen, I tightened the fitting while she leaned against the counter, sipping tea. The air was dense with something unspoken. "You're good at this," she said softly. "Handy. Reliable." "I try." "I never had that," she murmured. "Zach was charming at dinner parties, but when the car broke down or the pipes burst, he just disappeared. You're different." I looked up. "I'm married, Erica." She didn't flinch. "I know. That's why I haven't said what I want to say." Her voice broke on that last word. My chest tightened. "I should go," I said, standing abruptly. But she stepped forward, closing the space between us. "You make me feel safe," she said, her voice almost a whisper. For a moment, we just looked at each other. No words, no motion. And then we heard thunder outside. The skies had darkened without warning. You should stay until it passes, she offered quickly. You'll get soaked. The lights flickered once, then went out. A power outage. Of course. She lit a candle, and for a moment the room looked like a scene from a dream, soft, golden, and intimate. I hate storms, she said. Always have. I hesitated. You'll be fine. I know. But would you stay for just a bit? I should have said no. I should have walked out. But I didn't. We sat on her couch, side by side in candlelight, our voices low and deliberate. I miss being seen, she said. Not just looked at. Seen. I know the feeling. And then, before I could register the moment, she leaned forward and kissed me. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't wild. It was tender, meaningful, and worse, it felt right. My heart slammed against my ribs. I kissed her back. For 3 seconds. Maybe 4. Then I pulled away. Stood up. I can't. This isn't who I am. She looked down, ashamed. I'm sorry. I nodded once, not trusting myself to speak. And I left, into the storm, the cold rain slapping my face like punishment. Back home, I stood in the hallway, dripping wet, staring at my reflection in the hall mirror. My eyes were wide, my jaw clenched. I didn't recognize the man staring back. Laura was asleep again, her world unshaken. Mine was already crumbling. It was just a kiss, I told myself. But deep down, I knew.
It was so much more than that.
The morning after the kiss, I couldn't look Laura in the eyes. I made coffee. She packed her lunch. Our hands brushed at the counter, and I flinched like I had touched fire. She noticed.
Of course she did.
You okay? She asked, tying her hair into a bun.
Yeah.
Just tired. It was a half-truth. I hadn't slept. I had replayed that kiss 100 times, each time with more guilt, more confusion. Erica's face haunted me in the spaces between blinks. But it wasn't just the kiss. It was what the kiss revealed, how empty things had become between Laura and me. How lost I really was. I thought avoiding Erica would help. I didn't respond to her messages. I skipped my morning walks. I even started working from a cafe across town, just to escape the shadow of her front porch. But space doesn't erase chemistry, it only distills it. One evening, a full week after the kiss, she knocked on my door. Laura wasn't home. Again. I stared at the door through the peephole, hoping she'd turn away. But she didn't. I opened it slowly. She looked different, smaller somehow. Her eyes swollen, hair pulled back without care. I'm not here to make anything worse, she said softly. I just need to talk. Please. I should have said no, but I stepped aside. She walked in and stood in the middle of the living room like she didn't belong, which in truth she didn't. I'm sorry, she said, turning to face me. For everything. I shouldn't have kissed you. I kissed you back, I said, voice low. I know, she whispered. And I've been thinking about that moment every day since. Not because of lust, but because for the first time in months, I felt seen. Her words echoed too closely to my own thoughts. I can't do this, I said, rubbing my temples. I have a wife. A life. Even if it's broken, it's still mine. She nodded, tears pooling in her eyes. Then I'll say goodbye. She turned to leave, but paused at the door. Before I go, I need to ask you for something. And I swear, it's not what you think. I raised an eyebrow. What is it? She took a deep breath. I'm pregnant. It's not yours, she added quickly. It's my ex's. I didn't even know until after he left. He doesn't want anything to do with it now.
And
I can't do this alone. My chest tightened. What are you asking me for? She looked up, eyes trembling. I just need help. Someone to be there for the ultrasounds. To sit with me at the clinic. To answer the door when I feel like I'm falling apart. Not a father, just a friend. The favor. The life-changing favor. And now it all made sense. I'm not asking for anything more than that, she added. Just your presence. Just your decency. I didn't answer right away. How could I? My marriage was already fragile.
My heart was torn.
But she wasn't asking for romance. She was asking for humanity. I'll help, I said, almost against my own better judgment. A breath of relief escaped her lips. Thank you. And then she left. That night, I told Laura the truth. Not everything, but enough. There's something I need to tell you, I said as she folded laundry on our bed. She looked at me, guarded. Okay. Our neighbor, Erica, she's pregnant.
Her ex is gone. She asked me to help. Just to be there.
And I said yes. Laura's expression didn't change for several seconds. Why you? I think she just needs someone she can trust. That's a big responsibility for someone who's practically a stranger. She's not a stranger. The moment I said it, I knew I had revealed too much. Laura stared at me. You've been spending time with her. Yes, I admitted. But not like that. Not like that? Her voice cracked like dry wood. Then what is it like? I had no answer that wouldn't feel like betrayal. I kissed her. I confessed, the words dragging themselves from my throat.
Once. And I stopped.
But it happened. Silence. Laura's hands fell to her sides. The clean clothes dropped to the floor like spilled secrets. I don't even know what to say, she whispered. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. But you did. She didn't scream.
She didn't cry. She just shut down.
I think I need time, she said quietly.
Space.
She packed a bag and left that night for her sister's place. The house felt haunted without her.
Cold.
But I didn't try to stop her. I had crossed a line and the consequences had finally come home. Over the next few weeks, I kept my promise to Erica. I went to appointments. I picked up groceries. I sat with her during a long, anxious night when she feared something was wrong with the baby. But I never kissed her again. Never stayed longer than necessary. The bond we'd formed, once magnetic and confusing, settled into something bittersweet, support without seduction. A shared acknowledgement of what we were and what we would never be. Laura returned 3 weeks later. She didn't bring her bag inside right away. Just sat across from me at the kitchen table. I've been thinking, she said. We've both been unhappy. For a long time. We drifted. I know, I said. But I'm not ready to throw this away. Not yet. My eyes welled unexpectedly. Me neither. We go to therapy. We try to rebuild. And if we fail, at least we know we tried. I reached across the table and took her hand. It was the first time in months that it didn't feel forced. As for Erica, she understood. She always did. When I told her Laura and I were trying again, she nodded with a quiet smile. You're doing the right thing, she said. Tell her everything. But don't forget the version of you that showed up for me. I won't, I said. And I meant it.